Welcome friends to another 40k video. Today we follow the climactic battle between Angron and the Lion from the Arks of Omen, the Lion. We'll cover in brief what happens to get to the fight first. Following his attack upon the rock to retrieve the torture weapon that failed, the angels hunt down Vashtor and find where he is. Through captives they are taken, who all confess the exact location of the Archfane at the same moment. It goes without saying the Dark Angels find this highly suspicious, but after they have been attacked in their own sanctuary, they have to go to challenge Vashtor. They locate his power source after much fighting and find it's a broken but pieced back together Caliban. Within the planet are two parts of what Vashtor calls his dissonance engine. The last part is contained within the Dark Angel's mobile base, the Rock. If all three are combined, this will let Vashtor use the weapon of the old gods to tunnel through the webway and find the vault, and there find the weapon that he and Abaddon are after. Azrael leads forces at the Warp Forge gate on Broken Caliban. He has targeted that area in hopes of finding the Archfane, but instead finds a summoning circle and Angron of the World Eaters. Elsewhere, Dante and his forces arrive and aid the Unforgiven fleet in orbit. Dante has the Lion on board and announces this whilst feeling bitterness that he will never be able to do the same for his Primarch. Shortly after, Dante and Azrael and the respective Astartes brothers engage with Angron and his World Eaters. Dante fights alongside his sanguinary guard. Whilst this happens, Vashtor is able to speak to the machine in the rock directly to see if it wants to be joined with its two other parts. It responds with the one word, yes, and Vashtor and the engine vanish into another realm. Back with Dante, he and his guard are being torn apart by the bloody, hacking whirl of Angron. Azrael and the Death Ring follow to aid Dante. Angron smashes Dante from the air, and Azrael sees that he's ready to give the death blow to the leader of the Blood Angels, when the Lion and his guard, with great timing, appear. Angron, never one for a deep conversation, charges at the Lion whilst howling. Their weapons spark off each other. Angron's sword strikes the Lion's shield and is rebounded off it with a concussive force from the Emperor's shield. At first, the Lion is aided by his Lion's Guard, but the Lion orders them to back off. Then afterwards, the Lion backs away and Angron follows. Azrael, watching, realises that the Lion is trying to draw Angron away from Dante so that others can aid him. As the fight continues, Angron continues to rain blows on the Lion, who gets past them by fending them off or evading the strike. And there is the occasional burst of a shockwave from the Lion's shield. Then the Lion is backed towards the edge of a tower as Angron continues to attack. They trade blows. The Lion seems to be fighting in a very defensive style, and then the Lion leaps from the tower and vanishes. Angron goes in pursuit. Their fight continues in another part of the Warp Forge Palace. Around them is sinewy, filled with gore-wet flesh, which surges from grates and valves, strung through with sparkling wires. The Lion continues to fight the Demon Primarch, using every skill he has, all he has learned from combating wild and warp-tainted beasts, be it on Calidan in the Great Crusade or later. From Angron's perspective, he only dimly recognised the Lion beneath the furious pounding of the butcher's nails. For him, Al Johnson was just another person to be killed. Angron tried to remove the Lion's head, but the Lion's new sword, fealty, stopped the blow, whilst Angron's sword is knocked away by the Emperor's shield. The shockwave that happens afterwards drives Angron back. The lion is able to gain some space in this moment. He ducks behind some machinery, but Angron literally just runs straight through the machinery. At this point, the lion is gaining a sense of his foe and forming a strategy that might work against him. He's walking down the stairway and looks up to see Angron, who rips the entire stairway structure away with the lion on it. And where he lands, despite the strange world Vashtor has created, he recognises some of the architecture of his beloved Caliban. And then Angron is upon him again. He manages to create an opening in the lion's defences through a flurry of blows. And in that moment, he kicks El'Jonson in the chest, cracking the armour of his brother Primarch and driving him through a statue. Knowing the fury that will follow this, the lion drops down 30 feet beneath where Angron continues to try and strike him. And he finds himself in a new place, a place of crackling energy pylons thrust skyward from between crooked plates. Angron continues his relentless pursuit and hurls a World Eater's Predator tank at the lion. The lion himself jumps aside, but he's not quick enough to avoid the next tank. Angron picks a different one this time, a Dark Angel's Impulsor. This strikes the Dark Angel's Primarch. He leaves a crater in the stonework behind him. The lion manages to get on top of the tank that had crushed him moments before. As Angron tries to strike him with a great leap, the lion positions himself so that he strikes the back of Angron's skull with the Emperor's shield. So the Red Angel smashes into a ruin and is buried beneath the rubble that falls like an avalanche afterwards. After only a moment, Angron emerges, and the lion is not ready this time, and they both fall down into fume-wreathed gulfs. When next we pick up the battle with them, they are fighting through Stygian industrial depths. The fighting continues and they enter an area of demonic furnaces. This is the perfect place for El'Jonson to deploy his strategy. He can hide in the mist and strike at Angron whilst avoiding most of his brother's fury. Angron's frustration comes from not being used to fighting a single opponent who constantly fights defensively. He'd been able to spill no blood for Khorne in this conflict, and so he had been built up to a molten fury. As the fighting continues, the lion thinks of this battle and how it reminds him of fighting monsters again in the mist-wreathed Calibanite forests. And then there is a moment where the lion's plan unfurls. A piston discharges steam and it blasts aside the veil that the lion is hiding behind. He'd been trying to flank Angron. Using his wings to gain speed, Angron hurls himself at the lion and uses both weapons to try and scissor through the lion's neck. And the lion strangely made no effort to save himself, but he dropped to one knee and braced his own sword with his whole body strength. Angron slammed into it, driving the point into his own body. It went up through his torso until it erupted from the nape of his neck, and gore fountained out. But the force of Angron's charge was great. They rolled and bounced along after this. The lion's sword fealty had inflicted a great wound on Angron, and his body was unable to reknit itself at this moment, and the lion loomed over his prey. He gripped the Emperor's shield using both of his hands, and with a feral roar brought the edge of the shield, the Emperor's shield, down on his brother's head. It was driven through the bridge of Angron's nose, and such force was behind it that at that moment it embedded itself in the metal surface beneath. Angron's body exploded with this blow. The lion was thrown clear, though his arm was cracked, and he felt that he would face his brother again soon. So he tuned in to what the Dark Angels and the Blood Angels have been doing at this point. There have been several locations chosen on the planet for the remaining forces there to retreat to, which they do. And Vashtar, with all he needs, is able to take what was Caliban and what he has now dubbed as Wormwood into the webway towards the weapon that he seeks to kill the Corpse Emperor. On that note, friends, I will end today's video. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I did reading it and recording it. I only got the book about 4 hours ago, so it's a lot of fun putting this together and reading it.